Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hello, you're listening to the podcast, So There I Was. This is episode 126. It's just effing beautiful. And Baron came into being.
Yes, and you'll get the whole context of that when you
later
listen
in
to
the
this
show.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has something to do with Snoopy, by the way.
Sponsor this week is FTIratings.com.
Thank you to FTI Ratings, FTIratings.com.
Absolutely. They're sponsoring the show this week. Last week, we're thrilled to have them on board. So we appreciate that. All their support to help keep bringing these great stories to you. We spoke with Baron last week about Operation Eagle Claw, in which he was badly injured in the Iranian desert in 1980. And this week we talk about him going back to the West Coast, how he was working with Motts. And last week we talked about him being there for the initiation of Motts.
Yeah, stood up Motts.
Stood up Motts. So that was cool. Then he went back and wound up taking command of HMH 361. He was there from 83 and 84. Then on to NavAir in the Pentagon, and was the program manager for the Osprey, the V-22. I think he called it the XV-22 in the early days, but it became the Osprey, the V-22.
Tester vehicle.
And good things to say about that airplane. Some people don't like it, and Baron likes it. Said the airplane does what they expected it to do. So
he's not scared of it.
No.
You know, I'm terrified of anything that's got all those moving parts.
Right? They can hurt you.
Yeah.
So, tell you what, let's get out of the way and listen to Baron talk about being the CO, working at Motts, working at the Pentagon, and Operation Eagle Pull, which was the evacuation of Cambodia. So, till next week, stay safe and don't sit on the collective.
Do it.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Baron, retired Marine Colonel and aviator extraordinaire. You just heard last week his experience in the Iranian desert and how he was there for the initiation of what is known today as Motts 1 for the Weapons and Tactics Instructor and the kind of the elite school for Marine aviators. And we're going to pick up from where we left off in his career last week and talk about how he got back to Yuma and went on to become the commanding officer for HMH 361. So, Baron, if you would tell us, how is it you wound up, you went back, you were at Motts 1, you got back to flying and wound up screening for command and getting command. Congratulations, by the way. That's an awesome achievement, being a squadron commander.
Well, first of all, in the old days, there was no screening for command. You had
true.
You got a command. So when I was at Command and Staff College, I was down there, and one of my old COs from the 462 days in my second deployment, he was going through a aviation officer supply and logistics course down in Albany, Georgia, and all aviators at the Command and Staff got to go to the same school, the same training period down there in Albany, and I re-met my old CO, Steve Folger, and he said, "Hey, Shape, when you get out to the West Coast, I got a chance for you to get a squadron." I said, "Oh, great, boss." So I got out to the West after command staff. I did go to the West Coast. I was the group opso for a while, and all of a sudden one day he got called in the office and said, "In January, you're taking over 361." And I went, "Wow, great." Normally they have they fleet up the XO to the CO. At the time, they were going to stick me in there, and they weren't going to fleet up the XO. So I went in there and became the CO. I remember day one of the squadron, I had the squadron change of command on a Friday. On Monday, I went into the office. I remember going in and saying hi to the duty officer. I went upstairs to my office, and the door was locked. I had to come back downstairs to the duty officer and say, "Can you open my office, please?" And he took me upstairs and opened the office up and said, "Welcome aboard, sir." And that was it. So I had the squadron for about almost 2 years. And then after that, we did a tour overseas to Okinawa for my third tour. And then came back and in October of that year, 1984, I gave up the squadron to an old friend of mine, Dave Jones. And I went back up to the group, and then I got these orders to go to the Pentagon. Or I got asked if I wanted to go to the Pentagon. I had a phone interview with a guy by the name of Keith Smith, who was the DCS aviation at the time. And I thought, well, what was that for? And somebody said, "Oh, you've just been assigned to the V-22 requirements officer in the Pentagon."
Whoa.
And I said, "Oh, shit, how did that happen?" And he said, "Well, it's already done and you got orders." So I had got my orders to the Pentagon, or headquarters Marine Corps, and then back to the Pentagon. And I was in an office, and a Navy captain was the head OIC in charge of all of the services, and I was the Marine Corps service guy. And he gave me the Air Force and Army to be in charge of also. And
nice.
I was there for about 3 months, I guess, and then went back home to do a formal move out, sell my house, and get the wife and bring her out to Washington, D.C. And I get back to Washington, D.C., and I find out that the gentleman that was the OIC of the office had a heart attack and had retired involuntarily from the Navy. So now I was the OIC.
Well, congratulations. You're the OIC.
I'm the OIC. And the other side of the wall was the Navy H-60, 53, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, the lamps guys were in the office next door. And there's just a glass partition between us. And everything that happened in my office, or my side of the office, they could hear over there, and and vice versa. So
I have a question about that program. So what year was that you took over as the OIC for the requirements for the V?
It was in April of 1984.
Good Lord! So isn't it how amazing how long those programs take to get to the fleet?
Actually, it started in 1976 when the Navy, Army, and I'm trying to think, I think the Air Force all got together and wrote the requirement down for replacement aircraft for the 46. And they defined the size, the speed, and the range of the aircraft in 1976. And then they built the VX, called VX-22 from that. And it was originally owned by the Army. A Marine colonel by the name of Jim Creech was the first program manager, and his assistant was a guy by the name of Bob Garner. Eventually, that was in St. Louis, Missouri, and the Marine Corps then took over charge of the program when the Army decided to back out, moved it to NavAir, and Jim Creech came back and ran it for about 7 or 9 months, and then Colonel Harry Blott came in and took over from there and got the aircraft started to be built. And I was sitting down there in the Pentagon and did my 3 years as the requirements guy and thought I was getting ready to go to the West Coast, and they sent me over to Command Control Computers. C4I Squared is what it was called. And I was the officer under a guy named Rick Phillips, who was in charge of that particular department. And anyway, I was in there for about 6 or 8 months, and then all of a sudden I get called down with my monitor and General Pittman, who is now DCS Air, and I got called down to the Commandant's office one day. And as I walked in the Commandant's office, Alfred,
that's never good. Go to the Commandant's office.
I thought I was screwed. And so I get called down to the office, and the monitor was with me. And we all walked into General Gray's office, and Jim Jones, the previous good, commandant eventually. And he was the XO or the assistant mill aide outside the office. We walked in General Gray's office, and he said, "Hey, are you Jim Schaefer?" And he shook my hand and said, "I got good news for you." And about that time, around the corner came General Blott, and I said, "What's the good news?" He said, "You're going to be General Blott's replacement." I said, "Oh, no, I can't do that. I haven't been selected for command. I'm already selected to go back out to the West Coast. I got swim school set up. I got NATOP set up, and I got my flight qualification set up on the West Coast." And he says, "Well, don't worry. This is for the betterment of the Marine Corps." And I said, "I haven't been command selected." He said, "Oh, we'll take care of that." So General Gray and I hopped in a car and went down to Secretary of the Navy's office. And Larry Garrett was his name. And he walked in to Garrett's office and said, "Sir, I'd like to introduce you to my selected replacement for the V-22 office." And he said, "Here he is. This is Jim Schaefer." And then Garrett leans across his desk, shakes my hand, says, "It was a tough competition, Jim. I'm glad you made it." That's how I became the peak V-22 program manager in 1989.
But was that an 07 position, though?
Yeah, I was selected for 07 and before I left the Pentagon, and when I was up in C4I squared,
Well, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
Not really.
It comes with some of that. So you were ready to go, though. You were ready to go back to the West Coast, get your flight status updated, right. and needs of the Marine Corps, huh?
Anyway, I did that for 4 years, and then didn't make general, so I decided that the boys' club didn't want me, and I didn't need to be there, so I decided to retire. I had retired before 50, so I did.
Nice. Well,
you retired as a colonel, 06.
06, yes.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that position that Blott was in was already an 07 position.
Oh, no, he got promoted in that position to
06. Okay. I got you.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty outstanding. So that's how you finished your career right there.
That was it. Then I went to a variety of jobs working for an Israeli company, Elbit. First of all, I got a job at Photronics, and then which was building optical bore sight equipment for aircraft. And then I went to a company down in Maryland called DynCorp. And then I went to Elbit, which is an Israeli company, and I didn't like the trips overseas. So I was asked if I wanted to go to Lockheed, and I said, sure. So I went over to Lockheed and became the F-35 business development director for the F-35 program.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. So you've had experience in a lot of different things and 2 different airframes that we currently fly.
Yep.
Right. How much flying did you get in the Osprey?
Let's see. I got a quick flight in the XV-15, was the predecessor to the Osprey. And then I got 2 sorties in the V-22, and then a whole bunch of them in the simulator. The simulator was stationed out of Reston, Virginia, and I remember going out there, getting checked out in the simulator. And one of my jobs was as the program manager. Any general officer who wanted to fly in the V-22 had to have 5 hours in the simulator before he got in the aircraft. So my job was basically take the general officers out to the simulator and let them fly in that aircraft. They built another simulator down at Pax River, and it was called the Man Flight Simulator, and they had a V-22 cockpit in there. And I would go in there and fly various visitors in there and get them checked out in the aircraft. And that was my time there.
And there's the death trap. I mean, the V-22 image right there.
Yeah,
nice shots from badass BDS aviation photography.
Oh, yeah, those are good pictures.
The V-22 had a higher performance rating than its replacement aircraft as far as accidents, mishaps, and whatever than the 46. The 46 had a whole bunch of problems at the very beginning because they had hover aft modes and stuff like that in Vietnam. They would switch on hover aft and the back end would fall off.
Yeah, it would just twist apart, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Station 159, I believe it was.
oh boy, that's not good for anybody.
No.
No.
It made evacuating the aircraft pretty easy.
Yeah, the back of the tube was open.
Yeah.
Run right out. Oh man. So what's your opinion of the 22?
Actually, I think it's a pretty good aircraft. It's doing everything you ever wanted to do today. It's flying all over the world. It flies from Okinawa down to Australia, Hawaii to Okinawa,
Wow.
Okay.
West Coast to Africa. It's pretty good. It's a good air-to-air refueling aircraft. It flies at 250 knots. If you put the Air Force version in there, which has more fuel than the Marine Corps version, it'll fly at probably 1,000 plus miles. Our Marine Corps version flies around 700 nautical miles in the air
That's
in
good.
swing mode. So it's pretty good air. It's got pretty good legs on it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
In the lift requirement wise, it was.
It does the same as a 53 would do. A 53 was the A model in Vietnam that I flew initially was about 8,000 pounds. But if you took it off on a mountaintop, you could probably get 10,000 pounds underneath the aircraft if the blades didn't fall or flop up on you. But anyway, you get it up to 10,000 pounds. And the V-22 will actually lift up to about 12,000 pounds, I think, external lift, which is
That's great.
pretty good load. But it's designed for fixed-wing flying, so it primarily takes passengers and internal loads over the external loads.
I see. It replaced the Navy C2.
It did replace the Navy C2. So it's in the Air Force, the Navy, and the Japanese are flying it too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
Japanese.
didn't know the Navy replaced the C2 with it either.
I didn't know that either. Thanks, Bago.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I remember one
And
day,
how many hours did you wind up getting in that airplane total?
the V-22,
Yes, sir.
probably less than 10.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood. I thought that
Most of my time was in
I thought this-
53s, 6,000 hours.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So 6,000 in the 53. I guess, and probably a lot more than 10 in the simulator for the V-22.
Oh, I had too many hours. I remember one day I was flying Pittman in there, and he said, "How many hours we got to do?" And I said, 5. And he said, "I hate damn simulators." So he did 2.5 hours, and he got out. And that was then him in the aircraft. And then he got to fly the V-22 one sortie, and while he was DCS Aviation.
Okay. And you mentioned that term once before. I think it was in last week's show, but DCS is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Aviation. He's basically the Deputy Chief of Staff for Aviation in the Marine Corps is the Commandant's right-hand man for all things aviation.
That's correct. He owns aviation, not the requirement side, but he owns the aircraft safety, performance, and he also has a good say in who's going to be who as far as COs for different squadrons and different opportunities.
Okay. And all the wing commanders report directly to him?
Yes and no.
Is that how it works?
Actually, the wing commanders report to FMF PAC, Fleet Marine Force Pacific, or Fleet Marine Force Atlantic. Those are two of the chief commanders, and the wing commanders report to them. And then DCS Aviation has what you say is a very strong influence as to everything else.
Gotcha. Okay. So they're kind of, I get it. They report to FMF, the Fleet Marine Force Commander, and then but DCS Airs gets a say, gets to talk to the FMF commander about
He gets a lot of
who goes there and what they do. And
nice. In there. And when I was in MOTS, the DCS Aviation would come out there all the time, as well as FMF PAC and FMF LANT, and they would fly with us various different training exercises, sit in some of our classes. But was a real good friend of our CO, and so the CO would make sure he got an EVM hop, which was helicopter versus fixed wing. And 9 times out of 10, it was a 53 against an A4 or an OV-10 or somebody like that.
Okay.
And I got to fly
Nice. Very cool. All right. Well, so I guess now, obviously, your most harrowing moment is going to be back in the Iranian desert, but 6,000 hours of flying 53s, do you have any other moments that come to mind that go, uh-oh, this one it was as close to the edge as I ever want to be?
Well, in Vietnam, the first time I went overseas to Vietnam, we were supposed to be, because we were new aircraft, supposedly new aircraft, we weren't supposed to take ground fire. Unfortunately, nobody told the Vietnamese that. And so,
of course they didn't.
So we would fly into LZs and we would take our hits every now and then. And I remember one day being a relatively young, well, we were all brand new out there in Vietnam because it was the new squadron, basically new aircraft. And I was the co-pilot one day, and I remember I was flying, and when you got hit with a round, it sounded like a baseball bat hitting inside of the aircraft. And it's like about 10 or 15 rounds hit the aircraft, and it was a full permissive environment because it's aluminum, so the rounds came in one side and out the other side.
Sure.
So we got hit that day, and I remember thinking, beautiful, just fucking beautiful. I don't know how to explain all the bullet holes in the aircraft. And the crew chief thought that was kind of cute. And so he took that aside and went back home and made a patch with Snoopy in the doghouse with bullet holes in the back end of the doghouse. And the giant patch was about 3 or 4 inches in diameter. And it said beautiful, just fucking beautiful on it. And he took my flight jacket and sewed it to the back of my flight jacket. So I walked around with that on my flight jacket for the rest of the tour.
Oh, that is fantastic.
I don't suppose you have a photo of that you could share with us for the website.
I hate to say I wish I did, but it's I do have it. It's in a trunk in the garage somewhere locked up underneath my wife's dog show stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, had to ask.
Hey, everyone. Today we're diving into something that all you aspiring airline pilots and those needing an ATP or a type certificate will want to tune into. Flight Training International, or FTIratings.com. Since its inception in 1993, FTI has been dedicated to elevating the standards of pilot training.
That's right, Fig, but FTI isn't your ordinary flight school. It's a veteran-founded institution that's all about delivering high-quality and cost-effective training across a wide spectrum of airliners. From the Airbus to Boeing simulators, their training covers it all, and these simulators mimic the exact conditions you'll face in the real world.
Yeah, these simulators are no joke. They're the same full-motion, FAA-certified beasts used by all the major airlines all over the world. This means every training session isn't just a lesson, it's a real-world experience. Plus, the instructors have been where you are. Transitioning from military jets to commercial airliners is smoother than ever.
And the credentials these instructors bring to the table are impeccable. We're talking about professional pilots with previous military experience and decades of flying commercial airliners around the globe. They're here to guide you, to teach you, and to ensure that you're ready to handle everything from transatlantic crossings to tight landings at bustling international airports.
FTI also offers special programs like ATP CTP, which stands for Airline Transport Pilot Certification Training Program. That's been mandated by Congress to ensure pilots are thoroughly prepared for the demands of modern aviation. And the best part, all this can be accessed from wherever you are, thanks to their innovative training materials available on your iPad.
Nice. And because we love giving our listeners the best deals, here's one just for you. Mention So There I Was when you sign up for your first course at FTI and get a sweet $100 off. Whether you're a seasoned pilot looking to up your skills or a military aviator aiming for the commercial skies, FTI is your launching pad.
So what are you waiting for? Check out FTIratings.com. That's FTIratings.com. Join the ranks of their esteemed alumni, including pilots from the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, and even the FAA. If they trust FTI, you can too.
Absolutely, Fig. And don't forget that you can use your veterans benefits to pay for the cost of FTI. So gear up, check your avionics, and prepare for takeoff. Go to FTIratings.com and get started today. Your future as a top-tier airline pilot starts at Flight Training International. That's why FTIratings.com is the best option for you. Don't just fly, soar with FTI. Hey, one of the other photos that you sent to us, I'm going to step off of aviation for just a minute, and let's see if I can pull that photo up. You had an interesting neighbor there. You sent me some photos, and I went, I think I recognize that guy. And I was right.
Oh.
Remember the 1970s show Moving On with Claude Akins, Sonny Pruitt?
That's Claude Akins, and he was a very famous character actor.
Yeah.
And he was in a variety of films, including Moving On.
Wasn't he on Bonanza too?
So that was at our wedding rehearsal dinner the night before.
Okay.
Down in Yuma, Arizona. And the funny part was he was my neighbor next door, and I was in high school through college and into my formative years in the Marine Corps. He also he'd come down to my wedding when I get married my current wife in Yuma. And he was flying down on a small little airline. It's called Cochise Airlines, which is the only airline that serviced Yuma. And he had to go to LAX. And he was flying home after the wedding. And the lady sitting next to him, which was across the aisle, there were single seats on either side.
Okay.
Yeah.
And a little Swearinger airplane. And the lady looks at him and says, "Are you Ronald Reagan?" And he looked at her and said, "Yes, I am." And she I've never met the governor before.
Oh, that's
fantastic. Oh, that's great. Yeah, he looks, I could see a little bit of Ronald Reagan in that picture there, but
yeah.
I lived
why
in a
not?
neighborhood that had Chuck Connor from The Rifleman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Remember Horst Cockright from Bonanza?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He lived
Dan
across
Blocker.
the street. He lived across the highway in the other development across the street. So
Okay.
when I was in high school, or now in college, we would drive by his house and just watch him come out in the morning and try and climb in his Corvette. Yeah, very big guy.
How do you wedge himself into a Corvette? That's something.
Every morning.
That's great.
Nice.
Well, are we going to get to find out about how we got the call sign Baron?
When I got that patch, that was from the Red Baron, and the patch basically was snooping in the doghouse, and they called me Baron ever since then.
Well, there you have it.
That's a great story.
Nice.
I love that.
Very cool.
Beautiful. Just fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
It's fucking beautiful.
Right?
It's fucking beautiful.
That is
And the aircraft commanders looked at me and said, "You were flying it, so it's your problem."
Oh, that's great.
Hey, Skipper, how about those holes in your airplane?
I'm guessing it was automatic fire, so the 15 rounds came through in pretty short order.
I have no idea.
All right.
All I could remember is hearing it. So the times you got hit, most of the times were just one or two holes. And this day we got like about 10 or 12. I'm not sure how much you got hit. But they always happened after the hellhole, which is the loading cook for the underneath. So the crew chiefs and the gunners usually stayed in front of that. So there was very little problem for them getting hit unless you hit the tail rotor.
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
In the theory behind, hey, this is a new airplane, you guys aren't going to get exposed to combat or exposed to ground fire. What was that?
Yeah, who was smoking weed when they decided?
Yeah. What?
That was from higher ups because we were 53 was new in country. It was replacing the H-37, which was a massive airplane that very seldom worked well because it was so the components were so critical. I mean, the mechanics were very critical. Anyway, so we got overseas, and because we were twin engine turbine, we could fly a lot. And basically, they said it's a new airplane, don't damage it. So we were very careful with the aircraft, supposedly, and the word came down: don't get hit.
Oh, okay, yeah, don't get hit. Perfect.
Well, why didn't they just tell that to all the soldiers and Marines on the ground? Don't get shot.
The grunts. Yeah, the grunts.
Problem solved.
The Vietnamese guys didn't know that either. So we took some big hits. We got a couple rounds of 50 cals in there, but that was towards the end, and I was
Oof.
you kind of get complacent towards the end.
Right.
You're going home in a couple months, so what the hell?
And you were also
around get your attention though.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
so when you did the planning, weren't you involved in the planning for the evacuation of? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing.
Cambodia?
Eagle, yeah, we were Eagle
In
Paul
Cambodia.
for Iran. We were Eagle Pull for Saigon. The second time I went overseas was we had been back at Vietnam on the East Coast for about 3.5 years, and I volunteered to go back overseas again.
Okay.
They sent me to Okinawa to a composite squadron, and in that time we got told to take one of the aircraft, put fuel tanks in there, and they're all 53 Ds, but they didn't have drop tanks on them. So we had to take one aircraft and fly it down to down to Philippines, and we didn't know why. And we got down there, and all of a sudden, LPH, landing platform helicopter, came by Okinawa, and they put a whole bunch of other 53s on there, and they brought them down to the Philippines, and we loaded on the LPH at the time, which was, they rotated out every 6 months, but we got a chance to stay there and visit all the different aircraft. And at the time, they were getting ready to do Eagle Pull, and I went with my XO at the time to Phnom Penh, and then we didn't go into Saigon, but we had pictures of Saigon, and we were trying to figure out where to land the 53s to do the evacuation, and we did the planning for them, and did it for both Mayaguez, that was the Air Force. It was both for Phnom Penh and for Saigon. We did a lot of initial planning for that. And then when they mounted up, we got time to go home. My year was up over there, so I went back to the West Coast. And then they did it about 4 months later. 5 months later, they did the whole operation.
Okay. So that was almost a year. Help me on my timeline. I'm sorry, I don't have it in my head. We left Saigon in spring of '74, did we not?
Yeah.
Or no, I take it. It was over by then.
It was 75.
We didn't leave until 75, and that's when it fell.
That's correct. I can't tell you the dates exactly. All I know is I was back home and living in an apartment house in Newport Beach, having a good time, and I realized that it just went, and all my friends are out there, and they're doing it, and I'm not.
Right. Oh, you're there for the planning, though. Get it up and running.
No one pays attention to the planning, and the day you launch the first airplane, the plans go out the window anyway.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
The plans go out the window when you get punched in the nose. So
that's right. First round goes by your ear, and the plan's out the window.
That's correct.
All right. Perfect. Awesome. Well, and then, so I guess you retired. Let me ask what you did after that. You talked a little bit about a couple of different things. Did you do any flying post-retirement?
When I was down in Yuma, well, before I went to Yuma, one of my friends had gotten out of the 46th Squadron. He retired, or he got out and went to work for Atlas Airways, and I bought his Cessna 310. So I taught myself how to fly the Cessna 310, and I had it down in Yuma. So I did flying in that aircraft, plus the regular aircraft when I was in. Also got to fly T-28s when I was at New River, North Carolina, along with 53s. And then when I got out, I went to work for Photronics up in Long Island, New York. That's a good old airplane there. Anyway, so I went to work for Photronics up there with the bore sighting equipment. And then went to work for Elbit down in Texas. And then Lockheed Martin down in Texas just transferred over to another 12 miles distance. And then that was my trip coming in. I got to spend 6 years with Lockheed. And then I went back to Washington, D.C. and worked as the business development director for the presidential helicopter replacement, which at the time was an EH-101, the Augusta Westland 101. And we actually won the contract, and we're bidding on how we're going to do it. The first 9 development and production aircraft were actually made and developed and delivered to Pax River. They built a hangar for it. And once the aircraft were there, they decided, we're going to cancel the program. So they canceled the program with the first lot of VH-101s. There you go. The first lot of presidential VH-101s were assembled and in the hangar at the presidential hangar at Pax River.
And
eventually they got
government dollars hard at work, folks.
They said, this program is $13 billion. Well, the follow-on program was the H-92, and that actually cost more than $13 billion. It's flying today now. They just took the first squadron. The first aircraft was the H-92 aircraft, flew the president into Chicago, I believe it was, for the was it Wisconsin? He went to Chicago or to Wisconsin for the Democratic Convention.
Okay, sure. Okay, interesting. Wow. All right. Wow, very cool.
There you go.
Getting a front row seat to some of that. Very cool.
Oh, it was
all right.
Give me front row seats.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, I think we probably ought to land this airplane. And again, I'll say thank you for your service to our country, sir. Oh, but Becky's got a picture of the H-92 up there. That's a pretty airplane.
It is.
It is. It is pretty. Yeah. It's very CH-53-esque.
Well, it is, but it's a lot narrower and a lot smaller.
Okay.
All right.
And it has 4 blades, and the 53E and the 53K have 7 blades. The 53As and Ds had only 6 blades.
Okay.
Whatever that means.
It's a lot. That's a lot of whirling pieces flying over your head. That's all I can think of. It terrifies me every time I talk about it, so I don't want to talk about it anymore.
There you go. So,
initially, when we were on the East Coast, one of my jobs one day was when the 46s went down to take the Harrier would-be pilots and teach them how to fly in a helicopter. And so I probably had 8 or 10 of the original Harrier pilots in my aircraft, and I would punch off all the automatic stabilization equipment and make them fly with hands off. And as soon as
I bet that went.
As soon as they let go of the aircraft, I would take it, punch it back on again, and I could just fly it around, dancing around the little place, and say, "This is how you fly the aircraft. Why can't you do it?"
Yeah. What's wrong with you people?
Nice, beautifully done.
Well, I had the same experience, not in a CH-46, but in one of those little Bell bubble-looking helicopters, and it convinced me I could never fly a helicopter ever.
Right.
Well, they're fun. They're just as fun as flying fixed-wing aircraft, but the fixed-wing aircraft didn't do all the stuff that the helicopters could do.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, perfect.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for your service, and I could talk to you all day, but I know you don't have that kind of time.
And thank you for your time. We appreciate you spending the time with us. We're deeply grateful. A couple other thank yous we need to get out there. Thanks to Dave Hamilton over at backbeatmedia.com. He handles our advertising. Dave has a couple shows of his own. The Business Brain for entrepreneurs, the Gig Gab for musicians, and the Mac Geek Gab. So listen to those shows if you're into any of that. Dave has some great broadcasting skills, so thank you to Dave. He gave us all the technology we needed to get this show off the ground. Fig, if you wanted to give us a rating, a 5-star rating, because you don't want to give us a 4 or less, how would you?
So there I was, .us/rate.
Go make it so.
Yeah, and if you can't give us 5 stars, tell us why, what we could do to make it 5 stars, because, well, we're trainable.
That's right. We've proven
really? Well, yeah.
You got a helicopter guy in there, so you have to do it.
Yes.
Exactly. So if you want to get some cool merch, run over to starwars.us/merch. Get yourself a bikini, a clock, a shot glass, a coffee mug, a towel. Hoodie, you name it. Yeah. And then BDS Aviation Photography says, awesome show. And we say awesome photography. Thank you, Badass, for loaning us the use of your photos. We're deeply grateful for that. So thanks to Sticks and Bago, who do all this extra work in the background to make our show sound better, look better. If you're watching on the live stream, watching the sausage get made, as it were, all the raw stuff that we never edit, it's all the works in there on the back or on the Rumble, the YouTube, the Facebook pages, and all that. So there's facebook.com/therewwas.us. Yeah.
Thank you, Bago.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you. And a couple other folks we need to thank, Fig.
Well, that's the music of the 2 Air Force F-16 pilots that make the Air Force sound good. The Dos Gringos.
Love them.
Thank you, gents.
Thank you indeed. So, until next week, everybody, stay safe and don't sit on the collective.
Don't sit on the collective.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
What'd he say?
He said it's over.
Oh, okay. Hey, in honor of him going over there to Fort Rucker and acquiring some night vision goggles and doing some training with the Army, folks, let's just play this.
Where the hell have you been, soldier?
Training, sir! Training, sir!
What kind of training, son?
Army training, sir! Army training, sir!
And we are out. Army
That
training,
was
sir. Awesome. All right, everybody, we're going to end the stream here and say thank you very much to all those watching live. Take care until next week. Many blessings. See ya. And